Where is Kamala Harris? Where is Kamala? Nobody has seen her. Nobody has heard from her. She's hiding from reporters. She's not talking to journalists. She's not sitting down for Q&As or doing a Reddit AMA. She didn't even appear. She didn't even show up. She declined an invitation from the National Association of Black Journalists. Now, I ask you, if you are supposedly the first African-American woman running for president of the United States, don't you think it would be cool and beneficial and, I don't know, electorally intelligent to sit down with black journalists at the National Association of Black Journalists? You know who thought it would be a good idea? Donald Trump. You know who went into the lion's den, walked right into the fire, sat down, took the barbs and the slings and the arrows and the pointed questions and gave truthful answers and came out looking like a rock star? Donald Trump. You know who didn't go? Kamala Harris. She was busy. I think she went to another sorority party or something like that. Listen, that's our big story, and we're going to get to that here in just a minute. But like I said, the news is breaking all over the place. We've got a prisoner swap that just conveniently happened right now to give Joe Biden and Kamala Harris momentum and take it away from Donald Trump. You know, it's interesting. It appears that it's not just the Democrats who don't want Donald Trump back in office, but it's all of the tyrants and warlords around the world who've been having their way with Ukraine and Taiwan and everyone else, Iran. They've just been having their way with the world since Joe Biden took office. They don't want Donald Trump coming back either because they don't want the party to end. And Donald Trump is going to walk into the room and say, "Party's over, everybody go to bed." And they don't want that, man. They want to party all night long. Joe Biden gives them the ability to do that. We'll get into that here in just a minute. Plus, on top of all that, they pardoned this 9/11 terrorist. They're not going to kill him in Guantanamo. They're going to let him hang out in Guantanamo Bay for the rest of his miserable life. That's an interesting switch. And the Olympics. The Olympics is just gross. When did the Olympics become gross? The Olympics is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. Now, not only did you have the Paris opening ceremonies, which we won't go through again, but they basically mocked God and Christianity. You know the thing. You know about the drag queens dressed up like they were the Jesus Christ at the Last Supper with the apostles. You know about the naked Papa Smurf Dionysian character dressed in blue with the bulbs and the grossness and the bearded lady going rah. You know all that. But did you know also that the River Seine is so disgusting that some of the triathletes were vomiting after they were forced to swim through it? And on top of all that, they're allowing biological men to punch biological women in the face in Paris at the Olympics. That's exactly what happened. Angela Carini is a female boxer from Italy. She's from Italy. She's one of my favorite countries. And she worked hard, and she's one of the finest boxers in the world. And she said she did this for her father, and she was so excited. She got to the Olympics, and she qualified. And man, can you imagine if you're a female boxer from Italy and you get to qualify for the Olympics, and you're going into the ring, and you're gonna do battle in a bout that could potentially win you a gold or a silver or a bronze medal, and you're representing your family and your heritage and your entire country. And instead of getting into the ring with another biological female, you get into the ring with a dude. That's exactly what happened. The dude's name is Iman Khif. He identifies as a woman, even though he supposedly failed his gender test. Well, he got into the ring with Angela Carini, hit her in the face one time, we think broke her nose, and that was it. She was like, this is not good for me. This is putting my entire life in danger. I'm going to drop out. Here's the hit. Yeah, listen, look, here it is. Here it is in slow motion, just so you can see. This is a man in an Olympic sanctioned event punching a woman as hard as he can in the face. I mean, that would make me want to quit. This is another reason why I don't do athletics. This is another reason why I don't play sports, because of this kind of ridiculousness. So now Angela Carini, she takes herself out of contention. She throws away her Olympic dreams because she thinks, you know what? It's better that I don't die than have to face off against this man, this biological man who can't even pass a gender test, can't even prove that he's a woman, but who the Olympic Committee has allowed to fight me in this sport. They're just gross, man. I don't know when the Olympics became so disgusting, but this year in Paris, they're just horrible. Now, I get that next time they're in LA, hope to God with the United States of America can get their act together and not let biological men compete against biological women. Hopefully our rivers and our estuaries and our water, our water, what do you call it? Marine features, whatever they are, they'll be clean enough that people aren't vomiting. And I know that the opening ceremonies, look, if Donald Trump is president of the United States when the Olympics rolls into town in 4 years, then he's going to want to approve the Olympic opening ceremonies before this thing ever begins. Look, we've got all that coming up. Couple of things. A lot of our Catriots have been writing to me and saying, Mark Kaye, where's our new Catriot gear? Great question. The new Catriot gear is coming tomorrow. So definitely be watching tomorrow. Make sure you're scheduled this time tomorrow to tune into the live stream or listen to the podcast, whatever it is, because we are revamping the entire Mark Kaye shop, and we've got brand new Catriot gear. So all of you liberty loving, freedom defending Catriots, you can prominently and proudly display your Catriotism in a whole new line of fantastic shirts and hats and aprons and all kinds of other hoodies, which are very, very popular. People love the hoodies. We've got some camo prints, which we're coming up with. We've got a new Mark Kaye signature line that we're working on. It's going to be very exciting. I'm very excited about it. And for all of you Catriots who've been chomping at the bit, don't worry. It's coming tomorrow. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you hounding me about that. Because, look, I need someone to hound. I need you guys to keep me straight. I need you to keep me in line. If I say I'm going to do something, I need everybody's help. So just keep saying, Mark, when are you doing this? What's happening? What's the deal? Where is our Catriot gear? And it's going to be tomorrow. All right. In addition to that, so yesterday at the end of the show, I forgot to mention this, but it doesn't matter because it blew up into a huge story afterward. Donald Trump was invited to the National Association of Black Journalists, or the NABJ. He attended. He decided to accept the invitation. He was told that Kamala or Joe Biden or whoever was the Democrat nominee or presumptive Democrat nominee would also be there as well. And so he went. He said, yeah, I'll go. I'll go to the National Association of Black Journalists. It's important. It's important for me to answer questions from all different media sources from every aspect of society. Black voters are important and they deserve to hear from their former and future president just like everybody else does. And so he went, and man, he got Angela Scott from ABC. Holy cow. She took the opportunity not to question him or ask him poignant and important questions, not to ask him about his agenda or how he would act as the next commander-in-chief. No, she took the opportunity to try to push her personal agenda and insult President Donald Trump, and it came right from the get-go.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabbit to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
By the way, he's playing to the crowd, and the crowd loves it. There, you can hear the cheering and the applauding. And when he says, I've done so much for the black population of this country, they're like, yeah, you did. That's absolutely right. When he says, are you with ABC because they're a fake news? That's so vile and disgusting. Why would you talk to me like that? Then the audience reacts because they see through it. They understand what's going on with the news media. They understand they're trying to paint Donald Trump one way, asking him questions about, you told these 4 women of color to go back where you came from. That's true. Go back to where you came from. He didn't say your country. He said, go back to where you came from, whether it's Minnesota or the Bronx or wherever. When Donald Trump says something, it's always twisted and turned, and the fact that he calls DAs rabid, or he tells journalists of color that their questions are racist. Maybe they are. Donald Trump is not racist because he treats everyone the exact same way. He would tell a white journalist, in fact, he has on several occasions complained about white journalists, but he wasn't even done. He had even more that he wanted to say to Angela Scott.
I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here, and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom, and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late. Just so we understand, I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working, or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love if you can answer the question on your rhetoric and why you believe that black voters should trust you with another 4 years.
I have been the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln.
So there you go. So Donald Trump's out there, and he's answering the questions, and he's saying this and that, and they're trampling all over him, and he's taking it, man. He's there, and he's saying, look, you invited me here. You invited her. You told me she would be here. You invited her to come via Zoom, and she declined. Imagine this. Kamala Harris, or Kamala, or whatever her name is. Kamala Harris is the supposed first woman of color, and we'll get to that in a minute because we're not really sure which color. But Kamala Harris is the first woman of color running for president, and she doesn't show up at this event. The National Association of Black Journalists, the NABJ. That is something that is, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, IMHO, a travesty. And Donald Trump agrees. He says this whole thing is being mocked by Kamala Harris. Not only that, but they accuse Donald Trump of being late, even though the event started late because they had technical difficulties. Donald Trump mentioned that because the media was trying to turn it against Donald Trump. Then they asked him a question about DE&I. And I have I guess they don't clearly do any kind of due diligence or prior investigation, or they don't clarify their remarks beforehand or double check to see if what they're asking is actually true. They just throw it out there, and they assume that Donald Trump hasn't done his homework or is just going to take the bait. And Donald Trump's been doing this a very long time. Donald Trump has been on the receiving end of maliciousness for years, for a decade now. Donald Trump has been facing reporters and journalists who are trying to bait him and lead him astray for over a decade now. He's an expert at it, and he's not going to fall for it, and he didn't hear.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition of that.
Sir, I'm asking you a question, a very direct question.
Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Okay, now before Donald Trump answers that question, he wants to understand what exactly you're asking. Is she a DE&I candidate? What do you mean by that? Is she only on the ticket because she's a Black woman? What do you mean by that? Is that what you're trying to say? Well, you know who said that first was Joe Biden. And I guess, like I said, these people don't realize everything's on tape. All these speeches they give are recorded. Whenever they walk up in front of a camera, or they're on C-SPAN, or they're on, Fox News, whatever it is, all of these things are recorded. So if you're trying to say one thing one year and then come back and say something totally different another year, guess what? It's all been recorded.
To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full talents of our country and starts at the top with the vice president.
So that's Joe Biden saying diversity, equality, inclusion are the most important things. And that's why my administration is the most diverse, equitable, and inclusive. And it starts at the very top with the vice president, who clearly, according to Joe Biden there, is is a DE&I hire. But Donald Trump says, look, it's more than that.
I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do
and
you
I
believe
think,
that
I think
she is
somebody should look into that too.
She made a turn and she became a black person.
She became a black person.
Just to be
And he's right. Somebody should look into that. Somebody should look, because it's confusing. It's confusing. Is Kamala Harris of Indian heritage, or is she a black person? Well, we know that when she's when she's in Atlanta and she's talking to a black crowd, she tends to drop into that urban accent.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024. Yes, we will.
Again, that just seems to be, I guess you would say, a heritage of convenience. That just seems to be, ethnicity by design. Okay, what's this crowd look like? All right, I'm going to act like them. What about this crowd over? Oh, this is more. In fact, there's a video where Kamala Harris, the first African-American woman to run for president, is proudly proclaiming that she is an Indian. And she's doing it with Indian actress and producer and writer Mindy Kaling.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian, but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes.
I mean, how many, listen, I lost track. I was trying to count how many times she said yes to being Indian. She said it she said like 5 times in the first, here, listen to it one more time.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both
That's like 5. There's like 5 times in the first 30 seconds that she admits to being Indian. CNN actually did an entire piece on Kamala Harris and her Indian heritage, and to add insult to injury, they had an Indian reporter do the voiceover.
Her mother, Shamla Gopalan, was also the biggest influence in Kamala Harris's life.
The answer is absolutely yes, Joe.
After the big announcement, Harris's sister wrote in a Twitter post, "You can't know who Kamala Harris is without knowing who our mother was." In 1958, a precocious 19-year-old Indian, Gopalan traveled thousands of miles from her home and family to pursue a doctorate in nutrition and endocrinology in America.
It just seems weird to me that they would choose to find the Indian person to voice that. There's more on that, but I want to get to Joe Biden here. Apparently, Joe Biden is going to speak. We should probably listen to it. Let me see if I can pull up the volume here.
In fact, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu introduced one of them, Noah Argamani, during his speech, shown there in the white jacket, during his speech before Congress last week. So 300 days. Hostages still remain in Gaza, including Americans, but Israel is systematically eliminating Hamas.
John Huddy, apologies in interrupting you. President Biden has taken the podium. Let's listen in.
Evidence since March of 2023. And also since October of 2023. Russian authorities arrested them, convicted them in show trials, and sentenced them to long prison terms with absolutely no legitimate reason whatsoever, none. Paul, a former Marine, was in Russia for a wedding. Evan, a journalist with a Russian, in Russia, was in Russia, signed by the Wall Street Journal. Also a journalist, was in Russia to see family. All 3 falsely accused of being spies. And Vladimir was a Russian citizen by birth and holds an American green card. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and was a pallbearer at my friend John McCain's funeral with me. He spoke out against Putin's regime. And for that, he was convicted of treason. And now, their brutal ordeal is over, and they're free. Moments ago, the families and I were able to speak to them on the telephone from the Oval Office. They're out of Russia. Earlier today, they were flown to Turkey, and soon they'll be wheels up on their way home to see their families. This is an incredible relief for all the family members gathered here. It's a relief to the friends and colleagues all across the country who've been praying for this day for a long time. The deal that made this possible was a feat of diplomacy and friendship. Friendship. Multiple countries helped get this done. They joined the difficult, complex negotiations at my request, and I personally thank them all again. And I've thanked them personally, and I'll thank them again. All told, Russia has released 16 prisoners. 8 Russians who are being held in the West will be sent home as well. These 16 prisoners from Russia that Russia has released include 4 Americans, 5 Germans, 7 Russian citizens who are political prisoners in their own country. One of those Russians runs a human rights organization, Memorial, which won a Nobel Prize in 2022. Putin threw him in prison for voicing opposition to the war in Ukraine. 4 others work with Alexei Navalny, a political opposition leader who died in Russia prison this year. Now they can live safely abroad and continue their work of advocating for democracy if they so choose. This deal would not have been made possible without our allies. Germany, Poland, Slovenia, Norway, and Turkey, they all stepped up and they stood with us. They stood with us. And they made bold and brave decisions, released prisoners being held in their countries who are justifiably being held, and provided logistical support to get the Americans home. So for anyone who questions whether allies matter, they do. They matter. And today is a powerful example of why it's vital to have friends in this world.
Except your political allies.
Friends you can trust, work with, and depend upon.
Like Barack Obama.
Especially on matters of great consequence and sensitivity like this. Our alliances make our people safer. And we began to see that again today. Let me say this. It says a lot about the United States that we work relentlessly to free Americans who are unjustly held around the world. It also says a lot about us that this deal includes the release of Russian political prisoners. They stood up for democracy and human rights. Their own leaders threw them in prison. The United States helped secure their release as well. That's who we are in the United States. We stand for freedom, for liberty, for justice, not only for our own people, but for others as well. And that's why all Americans can take pride in what we've achieved today. I want to thank everyone in my administration who helped make this happen. Our work did not start just on day one. It started before day one. During the transition, I instructed our national security team to dig into all the cases of hostages being wrongfully detained, which were inherently, well, we inherited them from the prior administration. I wanted to make sure we hit the ground running, and we did. As of today, my administration has brought home over 70 Americans who were wrongfully detained and held hostage abroad, many since before I took office. Additionally, I issued an executive order in 2022 authorizing penalties like sanctions and travel bans on those who hold Americans against their will. And my State Department has introduced new warnings for Americans about the risk of being wrongfully detained by a foreign government. Deals like this one come with tough calls, and there are never any guarantees. But there's nothing that matters more to me than protecting Americans at home and abroad.
Except in Afghanistan.
So we'll continue to work for the release of all wrongfully detained Americans around the world. Let me end where I began.
Please
with
do.
Paul, Evan, and also Vladimir and their families. They never gave up hope. We can't imagine what they've been through, all of you. Matter of fact, this lady right here, I think, was living in the Oval Office with us for a while. All kidding aside, can't imagine their joy right now.
Why does he have to touch
They're
somebody?
home. Tomorrow's a big day. The 13th birthday of Miriam. Miriam, where are you? Come here.
Oh, yeah,
You all
of course.
know we have a tradition in the Biden family. We sing happy birthday
Oh,
Happy
no.
birthday. Ready?
Come on over,
Hold it.
13-year-old girl.
Happy birthday to you.
No.
Happy birthday to you.
No.
Happy
No.
birthday, dear Miriam.
Oh, my God.
Happy birthday to you.
He just made it
Remember, no
creepy.
serious guys till you're 30. God love you.
What did he say about her being 30?
Okay, President Biden,
Wait,
with
what
the
did-
families there of
What did he say
those
about her
in
being
prison in
30?
Russia,
I missed it.
recounting how this all came together.
Oh.
To discuss further, let's bring in our panel. We have retired Brigadier
He said, hang on.
General.
He said something creepy about her being 30, and I missed it. Darn it. All right, I'm going to have to go back. Well, no, look, but it's Joe Biden talking about bringing prisoners home and ending by groping a 13-year-old and singing happy birthday to her. It's you know what? I guess he realizes he's not going to be able to do that much longer, so he's going to take every opportunity that he possibly can. But it is really kind of interesting. Let's break this down for you here real quick, and then I want to get back to Donald Trump, and I definitely want to get back to the Olympics. But here's how this breaks down. If you're looking at it, here's how this breaks down in the workaround. What you have is no boys until you're 30 is what he said. That's so. Why? That's his own. Why does he do that? Why does he do that? Please don't do that. Anyway, so Joe Biden is he's all very proud of this whole thing that he or somebody in his administration put together. But I want you to think about this, because Paul Whelan was supposed to be released with Brittany Griner when we handed over the Merchant of Death to Russia, but he wasn't. And everyone thought, oh, Joe Biden's weak on Russia. Joe Biden's weak with Putin. He can't even get Paul Whelan. He made the wrong choice. He picked the basketball player instead of the war hero. And now look at this. We're in a position which I believe was probably planned the entire time. Because if Joe Biden were the candidate, if Joe Biden were the nominee, wow, wouldn't it be great if just a few months before the election, he were able to negotiate the release of four American political prisoners with Russia? Wouldn't it be great if Joe Biden could come forward and say, hey, here's what I'm giving you. I'm giving you everything you want. You got to give me this. And all of a sudden, he has a big feather in his cap, and he can roll on into the Democratic National Convention and roll on into the election, and he can claim victory for all of that. Now, what's happened is he's no longer the nominee. He's no longer the candidate. But the Democrats still need to do this anyway, because they need to make Donald Trump look like he's insignificant or like he's not the only one who can deal with Putin. But really, what you have to look at is the other side of this equation. Vladimir Putin released these people. Why did Vladimir Putin release these people? Did he release these people because why? Because he wanted to get these 8 prisoners back? Vladimir Putin doesn't care about his people. He doesn't care about the 8 prisoners. Vladimir Putin doesn't care about any of that stuff. All Vladimir Putin cares about is Vladimir Putin and making sure that he takes over Ukraine. What he does care about is being able to run rampant around Eastern Europe unchecked by President Joe Biden or any of the other people that are in charge of their countries. And that's going to continue as long as there's a Democrat in the Oval Office. If Donald Trump comes back to the Oval Office, if Donald Trump comes back to the White House, then it's all over. Then you've got real problems if you're Vladimir Putin. You got to pack up your stuff and you got to go home. You got to hightail it back to Moscow. You've got to relent, and you've got to hand Ukraine back over to Vladimir Zelensky and those pesky Ukrainians who you've been trying to get rid of for years. And now what you've got to do is you've got to basically call it quits. You've got to wave the white flag, because Donald Trump's not going to have any of it. So Vladimir Putin wants Kamala Harris, wants Joe Biden, wants all of them to look better than they actually are. And he's willing to give up the 4 Americans in the Soviet Union, or I'm sorry, in Russia, because let's face it, they're not really criminals. They're not really a threat to Vladimir Putin. He knows that. He snatched these people, held them as political prisoners until the time was right, and didn't release them until, well, the time is right. Because as much as the media tries to tell you that Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's puppet, or Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are besties, or you know, they hang out together and they talk together and they're trying to take over the world together, that's not true. Vladimir Putin couldn't take over the world with Donald Trump in office. The last thing he wants is Donald Trump coming back to office. The last thing Vladimir Zelensky wants is Donald Trump coming back to office. The last thing that the Germans want is Donald Trump coming back to office. The Iranians, all of these other people. Nobody wants Donald Trump internationally back in office, because he is internationally basically, I mean, he's a badass.
And seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
If you are a warmonger, if you wage war for a living, if you're excited about the idea of declaring war on your next door neighbors and trying to, annex some of their land, if that's you, then you're not going to want a strong leader in the United States of America. You're going to be pro-weak leadership. And there's no leader worse or weaker than Joe Biden, or I guess Kamala Harris in this particular instance. So that's why this deal went down. That's why this deal happened. It had nothing to do with Joe Biden and his expert negotiation skills. It all had to do with timing and the desire of the rest of the world to keep America weak. A weak America means that Russia and China and North Korea and Iran are all stronger. Joe Biden says he stands with our allies. Yeah, well, tell that to Israel. Tell that to Netanyahu, who couldn't even get Kamala Harris to come to his joint session of Congress last week. Anyway, let's get back to Kamala. Let's get back to Kamala and whether or not she's Indian. According to her, yes. Wait, where's my Mindy? Now he sounded like what's her name from When Harry Met Sally. Where's my Mindy Kaling clip? Hold on, I got it right here. Boom.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that.
Yes. We all know it. We all know that Kamala Harris is Indian. And then there's this CNN report.
Kamala in Hindi means lotus flower and is an important symbol in Indian culture, rooted deep in the bottom of the river. Very similar to Harris's Indian identity, which she wears on her sleeve.
She wears her Indian identity on her sleeve. Kamala, meaning lotus flower, deeply embedded in the water, like the swamp creature that she is. She's in the swamp and she's deeply embedded in that swamp, just like the lotus flower. And she wears her Indian heritage on her sleeve, except in Atlanta.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024. Yes, we will.
I mean, how insulting. Again, I'm about the whitest person you'll ever see. I'm an old, middle-aged, bald white man. But I'm not old, I'm middle-aged. But I want to ask you this. If you're a black person, if you're an African-American, if you're somebody who's watching Kamala Harris use this dialect when she's talking to supporters in Atlanta, if you're watching Kamala Harris then pander to the Indian community by proudly proclaiming, yes, I'm Indian, and then you see an invitation to the National Association of Black Journalists, the NABJ, you see that being ignored by Kamala Harris in her campaign. Is that something that draws you to this particular candidate, or is that insulting? Is that something that makes you go, wow, I want to support her because she clearly supports me? Or is that something that makes you go, ooh, gross. I don't want anything to do with her. Meanwhile, you've got Donald Trump out there who's answering all the questions and explaining he's basically saying what's on everybody else's mind.
She became a black person.
Just to be
And now he's getting, she became a black person. Is she Indian? I don't know. It's political convenience is what it is. And Tom Cotton from Arkansas, who I don't usually quote Tom Cotton or play Tom Cotton clips, but when I do, it's Tom Cotton on CNN handing it to Caitlin Collins. Caitlin Collins is trying to get, this is CNN's big thing. Whenever they want to make a point about something, they get a Republican on, and then they demand that the Republican admonish Donald Trump, or they demand before they start the interview, they demand that the Republican do something. It happened all the time right after January 6th. Jake Tapper would bring on anybody, any Republican that came on TV. He'd say, I'm glad that you're here to talk about immigration, but before we do you declare that Joe Biden is the rightfully elected president of the United States? Totally unrelated question. It's their litmus test. They have a little litmus test. They always go, let's ask this Republican if they think Joe Biden is president. And if they say no, then they're a crackpot. And then we won't have them on, or we'll just negate everything they say because clearly they're demented and they have no real concept or grasp of reality in this country. If they're pro-January 6th protest and they're anti-Joe Biden, let's get that out of the way to begin with. Now they're doing the same thing. They're asking Tom Cotton, will you speak out against Donald Trump? And Tom Cotton says, absolutely, I will not.
It's refreshing to see a presidential candidate who's willing to go in front of the media something that Donald Trump knew would be a tough interview. It turned out to be a hostile adversarial interview, but he's been doing that for 9 years. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, has been hiding out for the 10 days that she's been a presidential nominee.
And that's really the story. The story that they're trying to tell you is not the right story. The story that they're trying to tell you is Donald Trump went to the NABJ and said Kamala Harris turned into a black person. Donald Trump went to the NABJ and made racist comments about his black Indian counterpart. That's the story they're trying to tell you. The story that they really should be telling you is that Donald Trump went to the NABJ. Period. Donald Trump showed up. Kamala Harris did not. Donald Trump went to the event. Kamala Harris avoided the event. Donald Trump accepted the invitation. Kamala Harris spit on the invitation. She wouldn't even show up via Zoom. I've taken Zoom calls in my car. I've taken Zoom calls. That's the thing about Zoom. The beauty of Zoom, as we all know, thanks to COVID, is that you can Zoom anywhere. You could Zoom here, you could Zoom there, you could Zoom on the phone. As long as you have Wi-Fi or a strong internet connection, you can Zoom. So what's it say to the National Association of Black Journalists and the people they represent, the black voters of America? What's it say to that group that Kamala Harris won't even Zoom in? She won't even take the time to hit a button on her phone and talk to these people for 30 minutes. The story isn't what Donald Trump said. It's that he was there and present and willing to say it in the first place. Tom Cotton knows that.
My point is, when are you and the rest of the media going to demand that Kamala Harris come out and answer questions in an unscripted format about where she stands for this country, as opposed to continuing to focus on what Donald Trump said today? 4 years ago, Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. Could you imagine a more insulting comment? Joe Biden is presuming to judge the political views of 1/8 of our fellow citizens based on their skin color. Did you ever ask Kamala Harris to condemn his remarks?
Did you ask Kamala Harris? By the way, what he said was, if you have trouble deciding who to vote for, you ain't black.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
He said that to Charlemagne the God. You ain't black.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
And CNN never condemned him or asked Kamala Harris to condemn him as far as we know. CNN never said to any Democrat, hey, listen, thanks for coming on. Before we talk about abortion, will you condemn Joe Biden for making the remarks about black voters? And if they can't decide who to vote for, they ain't black? Would you? They never asked anybody that. They never said it one time.
Caitlin, did you ask Kamala Harris why she's willing to serve as vice president for a man she essentially called racist and a segregationist?
I mean, we all know the answer to that. It's because Kamala Harris isn't in it for the people. She's in it for the person. That person being Kamala Harris, lotus flower, who wears her Indian heritage on her sleeve, except in Atlanta.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
They have to get this woman out. They can't. Can they hide Kamala Harris until the election? Because what she does is she turns down every request by every journalist, every request for a panel, every request for an interview. She turns it all down. She says, no. I am not doing any of that stuff. I'm not doing any of your, I'm not doing any of, in fact, we have Joe Biden saying,
No, don't.
That's Joe Biden. That's Joe Biden. Will Kamala Harris do a sit-down interview before the election? What do you think, Joe?
No, don't.
No, she's not going to do it. And the reason is because she's not good off the cuff. She doesn't have any thoughts and ideas. She has one speech, which she gives over and over again wherever she goes. Then she tells lies, and then she calls everybody weird.
Well, it's just plain weird.
And then she packs up and she goes home. Same speech, telling lies about Donald Trump, and then calling everybody weird, and then she calls it a day. No live questions, no press conferences, nothing. She has been the presumptive nominee now, and will be the nominee, because guess what? No other Democrat has qualified for the ballot. No other Democrat has qualified to even be considered to be the nominee at the DNC coming up next week. None of them. Not what they all backed down because they knew that they were either threatened by their own party or they just knew they weren't going to get the support. And probably Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama said, if you stand up against Kamala Harris, if any Democrat shows their face and makes this harder, weakens her position against Donald Trump, if anybody does that, we are going to destroy your careers. We're going to primary you in the next election. We'll replace you. That's how they do it. That's how Nancy Pelosi got Democrats to fall in line on everything she wanted done for the past 40 years. Same thing's happening now. They're going to make Kamala Harris the Democratic nominee, and they're going to do it with as little effort and resistance as possible from within their own ranks. They have to, or else they don't have a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks. I don't believe they have a snowball's chance in HE double hockey sticks anyway, but we definitely don't want to make it different. So they're not going to show her face. The question is, can they hide her until November 5th? Jesse Waters believes they can.
She hasn't done a single interview since she's been the nominee. She hasn't done a real interview since May. And why would she do an interview next week? Why wouldn't she just wait until the convention, get the pop from the VP pick, get the pop from the convention? All of a sudden it's September, and you haven't answered anything. You haven't been asked about your flip-flops. You haven't been asked about your cover-ups. You haven't been asked who you are. And she could get away with it. It's the same hiding Biden. Now it's hiding Harris. And now it's just a sprint until November. Can she do this for 96 days? Probably. The media is not clamoring to get an interview. They want to keep her hidden.
Of course they do, because they don't want 4 more years of Donald Trump. Although if I were the media, I would 100% want 4 more years of Donald Trump. I mean, think about the boring headlines you're going to write if Kamala Harris is the president. Think about how boring these meetings are going to be. Joe Biden did not turn any reporters into celebrities. Maybe Peter Doocy. Maybe Peter Doocy became super famous because of Joe Biden. Tucker Carlson, sure. Tucker Carlson probably saw a little fame elevated, but no one else did. Not the way they did during Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was president, everybody at CNN became a superstar. Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, even Caitlin Collins. The reason Caitlin Collins never questioned Joe Biden about anything is because until she hosted that town hall with Donald Trump and he called her a nasty woman or whatever he called her, she didn't even have a career. Nobody knew who she was. She was one of the people that they forced Don Lemon to sit with in the morning and listen to his BS. That's who Caitlin Collins was. They all owe everything to Donald Trump. And now they're trying to get rid of him, and they're trying to help Kamala Harris. And they're helping Kamala Harris by not making her speak. Think about that. They're treating her like Joe Biden. The less she speaks, the better it is. Is that really the kind of message we want to send? Is that what we're looking at? They're not going to let Kamala Harris speak. In fact, they're already finding surrogates for her the way they did for Joe Biden. When Joe Biden couldn't go to East Palestine or was unwilling to go to East Palestine, they sent Pete Buttigieg. When Joe Biden couldn't do an interview, they would send in Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or any one of their surrogates. They've got a long laundry list of these weirdos. They've got, what's his name? Adam Schiff is happy to go on TV all the time and talk to people. The Democrats are lining up to speak for Joe Biden, and now they're lining up to speak for Kamala Harris. And one of them is Karine Jean-Pierre, who isn't even Kamala Harris's spokesperson. She's Joe Biden's spokesperson. Karine Jean-Pierre is the White House press secretary, not the vice presidential press secretary, not the Kamala campaign representative. She is the White House press secretary. But she is speaking on behalf of Kamala Harris because they don't want Kamala Harris speaking on behalf of herself. Here's what she said about Donald Trump's comments at the NABJ.
As a person of color, as a black woman who is in this position that is standing before you at this podium behind this lectern, what he just said, what you just read out to me is repulsive, it's insulting, and no one has any right to tell someone who they are, how they identify. That is no one's right.
Did you hear that? That's very telling. That's very telling of the entire Democrat Party. No, listen to it one more time. Listen to what she said at the end. It's repulsive, it's insulting, it's all that kind of stuff. But listen to what she said about identity.
She hasn't done a single interview since she's been the nominee.
That's not the clip. This is the clip.
As a person of color, as a black woman who is in this position that is standing before you at this podium behind this lectern, what he just said, what you just read out to me is repulsive, it's insulting, and no one has any right to tell someone who they are, how they identify. That is no one's right.
No one has any right to tell someone who they are or how they identify. This is the underlying theme of the Democrat Party. This is the left in a nutshell. You can't tell anyone how they identify. If they're a man and they want to identify as a woman so they can get into an Olympic boxing ring and pummel some poor competitor who's biologically female and win a medal, that you don't have the right to tell them no. You don't have the right to tell them they're not a woman. You don't have the right to tell anyone who they are or how they identify. And if an Indian woman of Indian descent and Indian heritage who proudly wears her Indian heritage on her sleeve, if she would like to identify as an African American or a black woman because it's more politically convenient, you have no right to point that out either.
You all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
That was Lotus Flower Harris in Atlanta just the other day. Where does it end with the left? You can not only change your gender, but you can change your ethnicity. You can change your race. We've seen Elizabeth Warren do it when she wanted to get some extra money for college. She became a Native American. We've seen it happen all the time. And now it's happening with Kamala Harris. And Donald Trump points it out, and he's the racist. Isn't it more racist to only identify with whatever culture you come from, whatever? I mean, look, Joe Biden does it too. We've heard Joe Biden say that he's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. We've heard Joe Biden say he's from Wilmington, Delaware. We've heard Joe Biden say that he's Puerto Rican. We've heard Joe Biden say that he's Greek and that they called him Bidenopoulos. Not a joke. I mean, this guy, she's of course learned from the king of pandering, Joe Biden. But this has really become a question for her. And there's a lot of folks out there who are like, look, black, Indian, white, I don't care, Jamaican, I don't care who she is. I'm not voting for her. I'm not voting for her because she's fake. And in fact, Donald Trump had a rally yesterday, because that's what Donald Trump does, while Kamala Harris is avoiding people, while Kamala Harris is avoiding the press, while Kamala Harris is not out there speaking her mind, Donald Trump is. And he went back to Pennsylvania, went back to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, as I told you yesterday, and it's 19 electoral votes, the only state that Donald Trump right now needs to win. Pennsylvania holds the keys to the presidency. Whoever wins Pennsylvania Avenue for the next 4 years. And Donald Trump's there, and he's talking to the crowd, and he's going back over everything that's happened over the last month. And he points out a very, very interesting fact about this election and the choice we all have to make.
The contrast could not be more stark. On the one hand, you have a radical left puppet candidate who is fake, fake, fake. And on the other hand, you have a president who will fight, fight, fight for America.
And that's pretty good. That's a pretty good summation. Kamala Harris is fake, fake, fake. She's the most unpopular vice president we've had in history. She was the border czar until all of a sudden she was running for president, and now she's not the border czar. Everything they tell you about Kamala Harris is opposite from what they told you about Kamala Harris a month ago. She was the worst vice president. Now she's been a critical part of the Joe Biden administration. She was weak on the border as the border czar. Now she was never the border czar, and it was never actually her responsibility. And hey, you know what? Even if it was, they did a great job on the border. She's the first African-American woman to run for president, except she's Indian American. Nothing she says is real.
Fake, fake, fake.
And Donald Trump is out there saying, fight, fight, fight. It's really a very clear contrast. And no matter what the media says, no matter what the media plays up, because they're going to play up everything. They're going to play this up forever. And they're going to try to make you think Kamala Harris is this hero. And they're going to try to make you think Kamala Harris is the answer to all of our prayers, that she's the anti-Trump. But really, let's be honest. What is the anti-Trump? Well, Donald Trump kept inflation at bay, so the anti-Trump would see inflation skyrocket. Donald Trump kept costs down of food and eggs and gasoline and home prices and everything else. And the anti-Trump would be skyrocketing gas prices and skyrocketing food prices and skyrocketing home prices. Donald Trump kept our border secure, and the opposite would be a wide open border that criminals and drug addicts and coyotes and human traffickers and fentanyl pushers and everybody else and terrorists from ISIS-K and God knows where else could just come right over. That would be the anti-Trump. Donald Trump gave us a strong military. There were no wars during Donald Trump's reign. And now you've got wars everywhere breaking out almost daily. Ukraine is at war with Russia, a war that could have been avoidable if we had a strong person in the White House. Israel is at war with Hamas. Iran is about to declare war on Israel, and God knows how that's going to end. You want to see a nuclear weapon detonated in your lifetime? It may happen because Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah and now Iran are going to basically light the entire Middle East on fire. And you know what happens if the Middle East gets lit on fire? That's right. Your gas prices go way back up. The entire region is destabilized. Putin gets more powerful. China gets more powerful. North Korea gets more powerful. And we eventually have to send our brave fighting men and women back into the desert to quell all of this violence that Donald Trump put an end to with peace accords that nobody in their right mind could ever have imagined. There was peace in the Middle East when Donald Trump was president. The anti-Trump, well, we have what we have now. That's Kamala Harris. It's really an interesting thing that we've got going on. Not only that, but you've got all the other issues here at home with abortion, with gender identity. You've got men beating up women at the Olympics, which is still just a travesty. The one thing that gave me hope about this, and it's a horrible situation, when you look at this poor woman, Angela Carini from Italy, you look at her Olympic dreams dashed. Probably all her dreams are just dashed. Her father's dreams, her parents, her country, sending her there to Paris, saying, "Go and fight for Italy. We are in your corner." And then she has to crawl into the ring with this dude from where's he from? Not Armenia. Iman Khif is his name. Algeria, whatever. And he goes in there and he hits her once in the face, and she, out of self-defense, her instincts take over. She's like, if I take another hit like that, I could die. I got to get it. No medal is worth that. But of course, it's daunting. And this is the one thing that brought me hope, was when they declared this dude the winner of the female boxing match, there was booing. There was booing. She's trying. They raise the guy's hand and the crowd boos. And that gave me hope. We need more booing. The only way that common sense is going to return to the country, the only way common sense is going to return to the Olympics, the only way common sense is going to return to the world is A, by electing politicians who promote common sense and don't let people get away with ridiculousness, but also by B, the rest of us standing up and saying, that is wrong. You are wrong. You should not be celebrated. We cannot let a man who punches a woman in the face on the Olympic stage in the hopes of winning a medal, you cannot let that guy be celebrated. You cannot cheer that person on. You can only boo them. You can only, in your own personal and nonviolent way, let them know that what they're doing is wrong and will not be tolerated. You don't have to be a tolerant society. Be an intolerant. They always talk about tolerance. How about being intolerant? How about being intolerant of high gas prices and crime and inflation and open borders and gender ridiculousness? How about being intolerant of men in women's sports? The more intolerant that we are and the more we boo these people, the more likely they are to maybe begin questioning their decisions. And maybe they will reroute themselves in some kind of reality. Because if you promote fantasy and you applaud it, then you encourage fantasy and applaud it. And that's all this is. These people need to be taught the truth. That you can't, as Corinne Jean-Pierre, just identify. Someone can tell you who you are. A doctor can tell you you're a man. A doctor can tell you you're a woman. Somebody can tell you how you identify. You identify as a woman because that's what you are. And if you're identifying as something else, then you identify as a mental patient. And you need some serious help. Donald Trump had some other things in his rally, which I do want to cover real quick before we wrap up. The first thing is, while Kamala Harris is trying to pander to middle-aged white people and she's trying to get the Gen X vote, Donald Trump realizes one thing. That, yes, the Gen X vote is very good to have. The Gen X vote is fantastic. The Gen X vote is something that is important to win elections. And while Donald Trump is tapping into Gen X voters with his UFC appearances and Gen Z, pardon me, when he's tapping into Gen Z voters with his UFC appearances and his TikTok, which is still running rampant over Kamala Harris's, when he's hanging out with Jake Paul and Logan Paul and he's getting all these young rappers to promote him. I just read he's doing a live stream on August the 5th with a young live streamer, a gamer who has 7 million followers. Donald Trump is tapping into Gen Z, but he's also not abandoning seniors, because when it comes to elections, guess who votes a lot? The seniors. The seniors are politically active, probably more so than any other group. And Donald Trump knows that the seniors have been taking it in the shorts. And he wants the seniors to know that no matter what lies are being spread about him, whether it's cutting into your Social Security or ending Social Security or privatizing Social Security, he wants you to know not only is he not going to do that, but he's going to give you more money for Social Security.
They're going to destroy your Social Security, but I will not cut 1 cent from Social Security or Medicare. And I kept my promise for 4 years that I will keep it again. And seniors should not pay taxes on Social Security. And they won't. They won't.
So Donald Trump is promising to not tax Social Security. Seniors, you're taxed on your Social Security. It's ridiculous. We're going to stop that. Waiters, waitresses, service workers, you're being taxed on your tips. That's ridiculous. We're not going to tax you on your tips anymore. Donald Trump is using the issue that everybody loves, which is their own money, the economy, taxes, and he's using it to his benefit by giving people what they actually want. Kamala Harris can't say you're not going to tax Social Security because Kamala Harris and the Democrats want more taxes. They want to tax you more. They want to tax you, the middle class, more. They want to tax the rich more. They want to tax your tips. If you spend $600 on Venmo, they have 87,000 IRS agents who are going to come after you and make sure that that gets taxed. They are tax crazed. Donald Trump is going to reduce taxes on everybody, and he knows that that's a winning issue. And that's why you won't hear Kamala Harris talk about taxes. Only Donald Trump will. And then there's fracking.
In addition to her atrocious record on border security, Kamala Harris would also obliterate Pennsylvania's economy. You know about that. She's against fracking. She's against oil drilling. She wants everybody to have one electric car and share it with the neighbors. Harris has stated repeatedly that she supports, quote, banning fracking. I ban fracking. I will ban it on my first day. Now she's denying it. Remember, a politician always goes back to what their original thought was, right? And she co-sponsored the $100 trillion Green New scam designed to abolish the oil, coal, and natural gas industries entirely.
That is true. She was the co-sponsor in the Senate with AOC in the House. The Green New Deal that was going to cost $38 trillion, where they were going to tear down all the buildings and rebuild them, and we were going to take trains to Europe somehow, and every car was going to be electric, and it was going to cost us 500 million jobs or something ridiculous. The Green New Deal was co-sponsored by AOC. She's one of the most liberal and radical senators we've ever had, co-sponsoring the Green New Deal with AOC. They're the same person. The other thing that Kamala Harris did was, yes, she said she was going to ban fracking. And you can try to reverse it. You can try to back out of it. But the fact of the matter is she's going to ban fracking. She's going to be a detriment to the natural gas, the coal industry, the oil industry. The oil industry has already been ravaged by the Democrats. Donald Trump says he's going to, on day one, he's going to shut down the border. He's going to start the single largest deportation effort in history. And he's going to drill, baby, drill. Kamala Harris is out there lying, saying that she's not against fracking. That's fake news.
Fake, fake, fake.
She also says that Donald Trump is going to cut into your Social Security.
Fake, fake, fake.
She also says that Donald Trump is going to cut into your Social Security.
Fake, fake, fake.
She also says that Donald Trump, which is probably the biggest lie of all, is for a national abortion ban, which he's not. Donald Trump is for giving the power to the states, and the states now have the power. And some states decide to ban abortion, and some states decide not to ban abortion. But it doesn't matter to Kamala Harris because she's out there spreading falsehoods. She's not being interviewed. She's not being asked about it. She's not going to sit with a reporter who hopefully would ask her, hey, you say Donald Trump is for a national abortion ban, but he's actually come out and said, no, I'm not for a national abortion ban. Can you explain why you would blatantly lie to people?
Fake, fake, fake.
I think we all know the answer. I think we all know the answer to that, because the only way that Kamala Harris believes she can win, the only way the Democrats believe that Kamala Harris can win is if she's not allowed to speak her mind, explain her positions, or tell anyone who she truly is. Because we've known for 4 years who she is. Well, she may be Indian, we're still, the ethnicity is still kind of a gray area, but we know who she is politically. And the Democrats know if we're reminded of that, if we hear from her own mouth what her stance is on abortion or immigration or the economy or taxes or anything else, that they're donezo. They know they're already donezo, but it's going to be a very, very difficult hill to climb. So they are going to keep her quiet and away from the media, and they're not going to let her answer any questions for the next 96 days. And probably after that. Listen, this is I'm telling you, there's so much news popping up every single day. The prisoner swap, which is 100% political, is just the beginning. It's August. This isn't even the October surprise. It's August right now. We've got war brewing in the Middle East, which could blow up at any moment, probably in October. We've got Joe Biden and the Democrats trying to figure out a way to make themselves look more powerful, more prominent. And now we realize we've got the rest of the world to contend with too, because it's not just the deep state in the United States that doesn't want Donald Trump back. It's not just the Democrats and the elite Republicans who don't want Donald Trump back. It's not just these career politicians and these agency heads like Christopher Wray at the FBI and everybody else at the CIA that don't want Donald Trump back and are plotting any way they can to keep him out of the White House. It's not just them. It's the rest of the world. Nobody wants Donald Trump telling them what to do. Not Vladimir Putin, not Xi Jinping, not Kim Jong-un, nobody. And if Donald Trump comes back to power, that's exactly what's going to happen. Anyway, we're going to keep tabs on all this stuff. We're going to keep watching the Olympics and bring you all the gross, disgusting things that happen during the next couple of weeks. We're going to bring you everything that happens with the White House, and we're going to follow Kamala Harris. And the minute she's asked a question, we will bring that to you. All you need to do is follow us. If you're a Katriot or if you want to be one, it's really easy. Hit subscribe, hit follow, hit like, hit share, whatever you do, because this is how we communicate. We have the freedom in this country to speak about our political ideals and share views and tell everybody what we believe is right, how we interpret the Constitution, and what the best course and path forward is for the United States of America. So if you want to know, if you want to know the truth, if you want to know what's really happening, if you want to know who your enemies are and how they're attacking you in ways that you may not even realize, follow this podcast. Listen to it every single day. Watch our live streams and our videos. Follow us wherever we happen to be. Join our Katriot network at markk.com. Get our daily Katriot newsletters so that you can keep updated on everything that's going on, because information is power, and we need power, because the more powerful we are, the easier it'll be for us to save the Republic. Right? Right. All right, listen, hey, thanks for watching. This was fun. I gotta go